Into the Spotlight with Osaka Jack on Everfree Network. Hello everyone, this is Osaka Jack with Into the Spotlight on Everfree Network. With me today I have someone whose work you probably have seen, but might not have heard from. Mr. Andy Price. Hello.
Hello there.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
Good. A little early for me, I admit this fully. And it's actually rather embarrassing for me, guys, because 102 shows, and this is the first time I forgot to double-check somebody's time zone. And sure enough, he is not Pacific Standard Time. He's on the East Coast.
Yep.
It was just serendipity that I happened to wake up, check my phone. What? Now? Oh, no! And panically rushed to the computer and down hot corn soup. Ahem.
Yep, I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, so you get fresher Coca-Cola than I do. That's nice.
That's true. Yeah, and we also have Mexican Coca-Cola, which is made with pure sugar, not with corn syrups.
Nice.
It really is a different tasting product. It's more classic.
I know that for a very short time, a few places allowed the import of Pepsi Throwback.
We still have Pepsi Throwback here and there. There's also, if you dig around, you can also find Mexican Pepsi, which is the same thing. It's also made with sugar.
Right.
If you can find a Jewish community around Passover, they get kosher Coke, which is also the same thing.
Now that's something I could. I mean, there aren't a lot of specifically Jewish communities in Japan, but that's worth searching for one for.
Yeah.
That's worth it. Okay, all right. Now I have a new quest items to do. Woohoo! Well, if anybody is completely clueless, could you give just a quick idea? Who are you? What do you do?
I'm that man who raps on your window in the middle of the night, and you think you're dreaming about, but no.
And someday I will beat you at that rap battle.
No, I'm sorry. My name is Andy Price. I am the lead artist for IDW Comics, IDW Publishing's My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic comic book. I started with issue 1, along with the writer Katie Cook. We've been working on each other's issues since the beginning of the book. If she writes it, I always draw it. If I'm drawing it, she's always writing it, etc. I just wrapped up issue 28 a couple days ago, and I'm about to get started on a new project, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later in the show.
Okay, all right.
So,
yeah, I was curious about. I mean, I absolutely love when I see the pairings of you guys, but I admit I get them a lot later than everybody else. Call me stubborn, but I just can't get into comics that I can't turn the pages of.
Thank you. I am the same way.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to do anything with money that we get or anything else like that. It's just I can't read a digital comic book. It's not the same to me.
Exactly.
I want to feel the comic book,
Yeah.
So.
And for me, unfortunately, because of the shipping costs involved, it kills me, but I have to wait for the collections.
Right.
So I do get to read the stuff, but by then, all 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever issues have already come out, and then they collect them, and then they say there's a collection offered. So I'm a good 9 months, I guess, behind everybody else.
Not too much. Not that far. Well, maybe by the time you get them over there, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if I'm sneaky about it, then I can usually get them through Amazon.com without a high shipping fee, but not always. Sometimes they remember where I am and add the fee. I'm not going to encourage them to do it. Just, if I don't see, hey, look at that, they forgot.
Right.
But yeah. So I am slower than everybody else in reading them, so I try to avoid a lot of the Twitter things like, oh my gosh, did you see when Celestia...
Right.
Some stuff sinks through, but a lot of it I try to avoid until I actually have it in my hands and can sit down on the sofa and have a kitty in my lap and just read.
Right.
That's a comic to me.
Yeah. The other thing with the digital comics is it's an interesting feature that you can turn on where you can go frame by frame rather than the whole page. Depending upon the service you use, I know Comixology does it.
Okay.
Where you can go, instead of looking at the entire page, you can turn on a feature that goes frame by frame. So you don't actually spoil yourself to anything at the bottom of the page. That's kind of neat. However,
but
my layouts don't really work for it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I will do oddly shaped panels or whatever, and they don't know how to interpret that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can see the advantage if it's if it were, say, a Garfield book. That would be absolutely wonderful because you could just get one panel at a time. Especially great for kids who are just learning to read or something.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, a lot of the purpose of comics being an entire page is that you get the flow of the whole page.
Right.
In my mind.
It is. Yeah, because, I mean, that's the way a lot of artists work is they want to, infuse the whole page with a particular flow, with a particular look.
Yeah.
Sometimes not so much depends on the page, if it's not that big a deviation, if it's just talking heads or whatever. But,
right.
If a big scene comes up, you want to do something special with it. And
right.
That digital format.
Even just, I would imagine, the size. I mean, sometimes you get a giant panel where there's a lot of stuff happening, and then the next panel is just an itty-bitty one to get an extra sentence or something in. If it's doing it panel by panel, I guess they would appear to the same size, and you didn't want that small one to be giant pagey.
Right. So.
I understand why, and I guess if you're doing it, yay, go for you, but yeah, that's never going to be my favorite.
No. I certainly understand the advantages of it. You can take it with you wherever you go in your iPad, et cetera, without worrying about messing up a comic book or
that's true.
Whatever. Also, for somebody like me who's been reading comic books for my entire life,
right,
for way too long, you don't end up with a basement full of comic boxes.
This is true. Yes.
So there is that advantage, but
yeah,
it's still. There's something to be said about leafing through a comic box looking for a particular issue and that smell of comics.
Yes.
That's something you don't get on your iPad. So
one of the most heart-rending things I ever had to do when I came over here, shipping books is really expensive, and I had to choose just the top ones. So I had to give up my entire collection of Dilbert, Foxtrots, Peanuts. I had like every collection and treasury from at least a dozen comic strips, and just had to give them all up. Hurt me so bad. I admit it, at the time I wasn't really reading comic books so much.
Well, trading those at least is, that's the price you pay for true ramen, for being able to get true ramen and ramen street food. So.
Yeah, I really wish they hadn't outlawed that a few years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're cracking down on improperly prepared food, and everybody's like, no!
Okay.
Man. I can still get hot, fresh sweet potatoes on cold winter nights. That's awesome.
I'll bet.
Guy drives around in a flatbed truck with a stove in the back of it selling freshly roasted sweet potatoes. That's amazing. But yeah, ramen is pretty much the same. Wow. Well, do you happen to recall what was the process for starting with the issue 1? Was it something you approached them, or did they approach you, or?
No, actually, when it sounds made up because it's so simple. However,
love those stories.
When Katie and I got the job, it started with Katie. She watched an episode of the show, and she thought, okay, this show's really fun. Mm-hmm. And she tweeted, I really like this show. There should be a comic book of it. Mm-hmm. Well, she was then contacted by our editor at IDW, who had just achieved the license for the book, and said, I saw your tweet. Do you want to do this comic book? And he was a little familiar with Katie's work already.
Right.
You know, it wasn't just picking a random person out of the ether. He
Sure.
was familiar with her work. But it really was that simple for her. You know, she told him some ideas and what she wanted to do, and they liked the ideas. And then it was just after that, we were at a convention together, and she saw me do a sketch for somebody. Somebody requested a My Little Pony sketch, and I had just started watching the show, like a month or two beforehand.
Right.
And she saw me do this sketch, and then she saw another piece that I did for somebody, and she's like, "So, would you be interested in working on a comic book for this?" I was like, "Sure, I'd be interested." And it really was that simple.
Now, I'm fairly sure, but did you know each other before that?
Yeah, Katie
Okay.
and I have known each other for many years.
Okay. I thought so. Just yeah. Okay.
You know, when it came to the art, you know, she sent my contact info to the editor and vice versa and everything, and he said send me some samples, and I send him a bunch of sketches, and he's like, you know, these are great and everything, and he sent them out to Hasbro, and Hasbro had one or two notes, but when we really got started on it, one of the things that I told him is, I'm not interested in drawing this the way it looks on the show.
Right.
And they were like, well, what do you mean? And I said, if all you want is for it to look carbon copy to the show, then just get some screen grabs, because that's not a comic. I want to take advantage of the medium. I want this to be a comic book. Right. And when I showed him, you know, I sent them a page, and I said, this is what I'm talking about. And I said, okay, that looks great. You know, that works. And that really was about it. I did not want it to be a standard model sheet.
Sure.
You know, screen grab comic book with a lot of comic books that are done all age are dumbed down. That's not necessary.
No,
it's not. One of the advantages
I would even
of the show,
argue that a lot of them, it's not even dumbed down. It's just pure condescension.
It is. And one of the advantages of the show, to me, one of the things that I always appealed about it, that was appealing to me, was the fact that it did not talk down to kids.
Yeah.
It was on a level where kids could understand it.
Yes.
But it wasn't dumbed down in language.
Right.
You know, every once in a while, a word would come along that Twilight might have to explain to Pinky.
Right.
But it wasn't done in a condescending manner, and I wanted the comic book to be the same way. And since it was going to be a comic book, since we're working in the comic book medium, I wanted to take advantage of backgrounds and mood and atmosphere and everything like that. So, rather than just breaking out reference of My Little Pony, I brought out reference for castles and reference for storms and reference for, things, all kinds of things to incorporate them into the book so it could be a little bit more atmospheric.
Right. And I think you did a darn fine job.
Thank you.
People are going to agree with that. I did see on your DeviantArt you had posted a character sheet.
Yeah, that was a warm-up piece when I was still doing the, when I was sending in sketches. It was like warm-up to get rolling, where I did, the size comparisons and eye comparisons and things like that, which there's not a lot of difference in the characters. Only a few characters have true differences in eye shape or body shape or whatever. But yeah, that was me for my warm up.
I am curious. I'm kind of blank on this term. Pinky points to Apple Bloom and says, "We usually have 2 highlights, but foals have 3. Highlight?
Highlights in the eyes, the little white dots."
Oh, okay, I see it now. Yes,
yeah.
Okay, got it. All right. Huh.
Yeah, that's one of the few things that separate the foals from the adults, is that they have 3 highlights in their eyes, and the adults only have 2.
Okay, all right, I understand now. Haha.
That's the kind of stuff, when you work in the art field, that's the kind of thing that you notice. You notice details that other people take for granted, but if the detail isn't there, then somebody knows something's not right.
Right. Now, it's entirely possible, but when you were doing the scenes with the changelings taking over the town, Did you happen to change anything small like that to make it a clear thing? I mean, besides them walking around like zombies. Because that would have been just absolutely wonderful if they all of a sudden only have one highlight and it just seems a little bit off, and people are like, "Why? I'm not sure." But
well, the when we had the controlled ponies walking around, they all just had wide eyes with just a little black dot in their eyes. You know, it was that was kind of a generic look for the quote unquote zombified ponies.
Right.
I don't know of anything else specific that I did to set them out.
I think I have to admit, when I first heard of the comics being produced, my original thought was exactly that. Oh, they're going to carbon copy it, and it's going to be meh. I wasn't looking forward to it. Absolutely. But
I don't think anybody was, because
yeah.
Except for retailers. But I think that was everybody's immediate reaction, and that was mine. I mean, when I got the job, that was my first reaction, and that's why I said I don't want to do this.
Right.
And I can't say if they had gone with somebody else if it would have been what it is now, or if it would have been a little bit more.
Right. And I'm not going to specifically talk trash about anybody. I won't do that. I will say, though, if it's a collection that has a different group of artists, I always first look to see if you guys have done it. There's others that I think do good work, and some of them and some of the other storylines I really like, or some of the other but there are occasional people like, oh, they've done this issue. Well, okay, that's only one of them. Keep reading. I'll give it a chance, and let's see how it goes. Okay.
Well, thank you.
That was attempted to be a compliment to you. I'm sorry if anybody feels they were personally
touched. We get that from time to time, and it is very flattering to know the following that we have, and we do we work our asses off on this book. We really do. They're very time consuming. They're and a lot of effort goes into them. So when we get that kind of reaction, it's very well received. It's very well taken.
Now, I am curious because, honestly, I mean, I said I was skeptical. I can tell you the exact moment I changed my mind was in issue 1 when I noticed the Young Frankenstein reference you put into one of the panels. That was
it. The diary? Was it the book?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just glancing. I said, "Wait, is that what?" Oh.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sold. That's it. I'm out. I'm done. That's it. I got it. Yep.
I think a lot of people were really surprised by the approaches that I took in issue 1, and there was I hear moments like that from a lot of people. Mm-hmm. A lot of people comment on the Donald Sutherland.
Yes, that was
cameo.
The other one I was going to mention.
Some people
you
say
could almost hear the sound.
Oh yeah, and that was actually a big let's see if this works moment.
Right.
I was like, let's see if Hasbro will allow this.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that I love to push the envelope.
Oh yeah.
If I can't take a little bit of a chance, it starts to get dull.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, earlier in the issue, I had little things, like the Victor Frankenstein diary, how I did it, and things like that. There was the Blues Brothers in the background.
Yes.
There was Magnum PI. There, things like that, but they were little, and they didn't interfere with anything. Here was something story driven, story moment, and it was like, okay, let's see what happens. And I did that. I got out reference of Donald Sutherland, and I wanted that look, and I said it, and they were like, "This is great." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So,
all right, let's see what else we can do.
Yeah. They thought that was hysterical.
One of a book that I really enjoyed reading. I don't know how many people would enjoy it now, but Drew Carey's book, which was half short stories by him and half talking about his show at the time, which was really popular. And one of the things he said was, worst day ever working on the show. We sent our script into the network, and it came back No notes, approved as submitted. And we all had to go home because we were too disappointed and sad, and we just couldn't live with ourselves having done something that every network censor approved of.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not quite the same for you, I'm sure, but I'm sure at the same time you have gotten at least some notes saying, "Okay, take this out, please."
Oh yeah. We've had our run-ins with Hasbro. There was one issue that was, I redrew it. I drew the issue about 1 2/3 times.
Wow.
We've never had so many changes. They had a lot of changes. It changed the entire storyline direction that we wanted to take. And the unfortunate thing for me is, Hasbro is a big entity. It's not one person. There's a lot of people. So a lot of people approve things and disapprove things. It takes them time.
Sure.
We are on a tight schedule. So a lot of their changes come down at the last second. Oh no, you have to change this. Why are you telling me this now? Right. That kind of thing. That's the most annoying thing to me. But we have had, a couple of changes here and there. Right. There have been some changes that are, they'll change in the storyline. Before it even comes to me, when they're working on Katie's script, they will change something if it contradicts something that is coming up on the show.
Okay. That I can understand. I can understand.
Yeah, they're kind of policing. Okay, are we being redundant or whatever? Like, for example, in issue 1, when issue 1 starts, the Cutie Mark Crusaders are in Fluttershy's backyard, exploring with the animals and everything like that. Originally, in the script, they were on a camping trip, and they said you can't take them camping because we're going camping later in the season,
right? And
that'd be redundant. So we're like, okay, so we changed that. Things like that.
I don't think that'd be a huge problem, but I can understand where they're coming from. We don't want to double tap the camping thing. I get it.
Right.
I understand. Okay. That makes sense to me. I know that GM Barrow, who wrote a lot of the books, when she first wrote them, she sent it in, and they're like, okay, you got to change this because this goes against shows that are in the future, and goes in. And somebody eventually just said, you know what, why don't we just let her read what's coming up so we don't have to make all these changes again?
Yeah, we've actually requested the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, they're like, they're kind of wary about it.
Yeah.
I guess because we're a visual medium. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
They're afraid you're gonna steal their thunder or something.
I have no idea.
I could just see you do an extreme zoom on the left bottom panel of the last comic. Oh, look, there's the entire season 5 script. Awesome.
But Jillian, GM Barrow, she actually has different contacts than we do. Right. With Hasbro, there's people that work with Jillian on the chapter books and those kind of things, and then there's other representatives that work with the comics. Other people that work with this franchise, other people, It's all subdivided. So we don't have the same people. When we talk directly with people of the show, talking with Jim Miller, with Jason Thies and these kind of guys, they're like, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. What are you guys doing, etc. We start trading ideas back and forth all the time.
Awesome.
But when it comes to official channels, we don't get a lot of insight of what's coming up. Which is kind of odd.
I get the image of Life of Brian, where the committee has to go to the side and talk to each other, and then they half of them raise their hands and they do another vote and okay, and then they turn around and applaud.
Yes. Okay. To be honest, I have no idea how many hands our works pass through before it's finally given. I don't know. I do my work, I send it on to my editor. My editor then has to send it on to Hasbro.
Right.
From there, it goes into some weird ether world, and I don't know what takes place. And then at some point, they get, everything's okay, everything's kosher, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I have this image of, the doors of Hasbro being the entrance to the Oort cloud. And comets come from there, but we're not quite sure exactly how it works.
I think it's kind of like a hallway in Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
Where just you endlessly go back and forth through the doors.
Right.
And don't necessarily achieve it. I don't know. I don't know. I just draw the pretty pictures, and that's all I do. So,
Now, I'm sure people have mentioned it to you before, but the amount of just hidden details. I mean, we mentioned a few of them, like Donald Sutherland and Young Frankenstein. They're just incredible, and it takes me a lot longer to read your guys' comics than anybody else's. Just because, even though I want to get the story and I want to keep up the pace, I'm like, oh wait, what did I miss? What did I miss in that panel? I know I missed something. I know I did. How many of those references are in Katie's script when it comes to you?
not many.
Okay.
That's mainly me. That's something I have always done in my work. Way back a million years ago, I did a comic book for Innovation Comics based on the Quantum Leap television series.
Okay.
And I was doing it then. There's one storyline that takes place where Sam has leapt into a student at MIT in the late 60s.
Okay.
And apparently at MIT there is a hallway in one building where at certain times of year the sunlight comes to the building. I forget what they call it. It's like the infinite sunset or something like that. It's a true event at MIT.
All right.
But I had to draw this thing, and I had to draw a big crowd scene of everybody jammed into the hallway of this building waiting to watch this event.
Okay.
So in the hallway I put in the crowd there's Space Ghost. There's Hawkeye Pierce and BJ Honeycutt. There's Clark Kent. There's Kirk and Spock undercover in trench coats trying to hide their communicators as they talk.
Of course.
It was stuff to entertain me. And I've always done that. In the licensing work I've done for Marvel and DC, things like that. Every once in a while, Katie will come up with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, do this. Or we'll go back and forth on text.
Right.
What if we did? What if we did? Oh, I dare you do this, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. But for the most part, a lot of those are just me. And it's just me. It's not so much for any particular fans or anything like that. It's me entertaining me.
And that's absolutely the best way to do it. Yeah, if it was something that you were trying to force, I think it'd be very obvious.
Yeah.
And it would seem out of place. But if it's something like I know it'll fit right here. I know.
Right.
And just put it in.
I'm not interested in hand feeding things to fans because it's what they expect or because or anything like that. A lot of the fans like to use the word pandering. They're welcome to. They can cause whatever.
Yeah, go crazy.
They can say whatever they want. It doesn't matter. But I draw for me.
Yeah.
If I'm not pleased with it, if I'm not entertained by it, then I don't think anybody else will be either. So
we all have our inner Maximus. Are you not entertained? No, I'm not. Let's erase this. Start over. It's not working.
I think there are gags that Katie thinks of. Mm-hmm. We text back and forth a lot especially during the construction of an issue. If I'm in the drawing stage or whatever, if I have a question about the script, I'll ask her, and we just start bantering ideas back and forth. And a lot of ideas will come about. After the script is done, what if we did this? Mm-hmm. So she'll come up with ideas, I come up with ideas, but a lot of the background visual stuff is just me.
Can you recall any? I'm sure there are instances where you've finished, and then after you're finished, like, man, what would have been perfect.
Oh yeah. Hindsight's always 20/20, especially after the book has gone off to print. Right. Where you think of, I meant to do, or this would have been better, but I try not to hover around things like that because then you get under that shadow, and you start to worry about what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Like, I can't forget to do this time. Mm-hmm. What was it? But sure, there's times where
of wouldas and couldas.
Right. There's times I think of things. Also part of it is the environment. If I was about to say the girls, but we're not allowed to say girls.
We're not.
We're not allowed to say that.
Interesting.
That was one of the notes from Hasbro. You cannot say girls.
I've heard it in the show, but okay.
So have I. And that was our argument. They were like, we said, they say that in the show. They call themselves that. You know, Twilight will say, hey, come on, girls, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a term. And they said, no, you can't call them girls. That was one of our rules in issue 1.
I'm going to argue that probably that rule started with Equestria Girls, but I don't know that for sure, but that's my logic.
Before that. No, it was way before that.
Oh, okay.
And it was funny, I was talking with Mitch Larson about it, and he said, we got the same note.
Huh.
And we were all like looking at each other like, why? And we were like, I don't know. Okay. So.
To me, that would be the most frustrating thing about notes, is that a note comes and there's no why? Give me a reason. I'm happy if there's a reason.
You know, you mentioned a lot of times, and I am not trying to bash anybody at the Hasbro people or DHX or anything else like that.
I'm sure they have to answer to way more people than anybody knows of. Yeah.
Right. You know, they've got their job to do. Mm-hmm. However, going back to what you said about Drew Carey, you know, when they got the script that says, you know, no changes.
Right.
And you can't help but wonder at that point, okay, did you even look at it? Because this doesn't ring right. It also makes me wonder sometimes, okay, does person A look at it this time, person B look at it this time? I don't know.
I'm sure.
But years ago, a book came out the title of the book was A Martian Wouldn't Say That.
Okay.
And the entire book was a collection of corporate television notes. And it was the notations that came down from corporate or from network to the individual show writers saying, you can't do this or whatever. And the title referred to, there was an episode of 60s sitcom called My Favorite Martian.
I remember.
Yeah.
Well, not
where
I'm not that old, but I've seen it.
Right. Ray Walston, who played the Martian, he had a particular line of dialogue. And the note came back, a Martian would not say this. Really? You know this firsthand? But that's how we feel when we get these notes. Is like, what? What? You know, when we hear this kind of stuff, we're like, what are you thinking? But, you know, they've all got their jobs to do. I don't know the information behind it.
Sure.
So I just shrug and move on.
Yeah.
You know?
Though, honestly, to be totally honest, if you guys did start saving them, you could get your own Don't Call the Ponies Girls book in 10 years or something. That I'm sure it would sell. I would.
Yeah.
Well, and I suppose it's somewhat slightly related, but you've been to quite a few conventions, and
more than my share. Yeah.
I haven't met you at a convention yet, which is regrettable. But I do have one of your works.
Well, tell the Japan BronyCons to invite me.
Well, there's only one, and I do work on it, and we're trying, but we have so few attendees. It's really hurting us. We can barely afford a Skype call from somebody. We are trying, though. I promise you that. We are trying.
Excellent.
And if anybody does want to come visit, you let us know, and we'll give you the star treatment in Japan. No problem.
Yeah, I did meet last year I was at a show, and I met a couple of representatives from the show. Mm-hmm. I don't remember their names or anything like that. They brought me a couple of gifts, and they were very charming, very, very lovely people to talk to. And I did a little recorded message for them for the show.
Yep. We saw that at the last Japan PonyCon. Woo! Yeah.
But yes, I've done quite a few conventions.
Well, and I have here from the Singapore convention. One of my friends thought he would surprise me with this, but he wasn't very subtle on what he was getting, so I kind of guessed it. But anyway, the little card prints that you do are really adorable. And how many of those do you get at an average convention?
Oh, about 1.2 billion. For those in the audience that don't know what we're talking about,
I'll put a picture right here.
Okay. I post them on my Twitter. You guys are more than welcome to come and join me on Twitter. My Twitter name is Andy Price Art, all one word. And I post a lot of artwork that I do at conventions. And at the conventions, the most common thing I do is these little $10 sketches. They're four and a quarter by 5.5, something like that, on little cardstock, and people come up and I just say, "Who do you want? What do you want?" I do a head sketch of whatever they want to do. And some of them are silly, some of them are sweet, some of them are dramatic, whatever comes up. I do OCs. I have no problem doing that. I don't do anything adult.
Right.
Nothing that's really going to be too outrageous, but, we do a lot of gags and things like that. And I post them on my Twitter, and I get them all day long at a show.
Wow.
And, the idea actually came from watching Katie.
Okay.
Katie has got a great little market. And if anybody sees Katie at a show, it's well worth the time to stand in the inevitable line that is at her table. She always has a line. She does these little bitty, tiny mini paintings.
I have seen those, yes.
And they're I think they're maybe about 2.5 by 3 inches, something like that. Little piece of cardstock with rounded corners that she's got. She sits there and clips all the corners at the show. And she draws anything anybody wants. Her most common things to do pet portraits.
Okay.
People will come up, picture their cat or whatever. But she whips these out. It's a tiny little watercolor painting, and it's just freaking adorable. I mean, you feel your blood sugar level rise as you look at these things. And I was like, well, that's an idea, because a lot of the commissions that I was doing were very time consuming, bigger pieces. And I was like, well, not everybody can afford the bigger pieces.
Right.
Not everybody has time to wait for them, so it was something to get people flowing at the table. Right. And they're fun to do. But yeah, I do them all day long. By the end of the day, my arm is worn out. Katie and I will go to some bar and drink so that the rest of our body will be as numb as our arm is, But yeah, I do those all day long at conventions. I do dozens and dozens of them. I'm just taking quick pictures of them with my phone as they're done. They're not the clearest pictures.
Granted, but a lot, just even those pictures, I've been like, oh man, that's so awesome.
I guess I'm trying to get, I guess I'm so busy on Twitter. And when a show is done, I don't think about it.
Oh, okay. All right.
When a show is done, for a lot of people get upset that I don't take commissions home from a convention.
Okay.
One of the reasons is when the convention is done, it's done.
Yeah.
It's out of my mind. I do not think about it. And that is commissions as well. When I get home, I've got stuff waiting on me.
Yep. I can
And I do not think, when I was doing that, I'd get back into the groove of doing things at home and realize, oh, crap, I've still got the commission I haven't finished.
Sure. And
so I don't do it. I've done it very reluctantly a couple times in the past. And it's never worked out well, so I don't do it.
Well, no, it's important to have, one area is your work area, and when you're not in the work area, you don't do the work.
Yeah, the convention is the convention, the home is home, and the studio is the studio, and so.
Yeah, gotta keep those separate. I can understand that. Okay, that makes sense.
But I don't post my DeviantArt probably because I just don't think about it. I'm posting more finished work.
Sure.
There, and I don't think about the little sketches.
I'm not an artist, so I'm take my advice for whatever. But I really think a lot of people would like it if you just made a little section, just con sketches.
Yeah, I probably will. My DeviantArt is in sore need of updating. I've been on the road since early October, and then with the holidays and the issue and everything else like that, I haven't been able to touch DeviantArt since November.
Wow.
So it's very behind. I've got to update it.
I do want to mention, though, really fast, I just was blown away by the Fawlty Towers grayscale.
Oh, thank you. That was for a really good friend of mine who has a themed sketchbook. The whole sketchbook is just BBC programs.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And I love to see people with themed sketchbooks.
Yes.
That's something at conventions that's really sparks the interest of the artist. Is when somebody could come up with a theme.
Sure.
That's really neat. It starts to get our mind going. She came up, she said, I've got a BBC sketchbook. And I was like, Fawlty Towers. That's it. I mean, I didn't even hesitate for a second.
Oh yeah.
I was like, I want Fawlty Towers. She's like, okay.
Yeah, guys out there, I know how much you love Pony, but please give Fawlty Towers a try. It is. I'm still going to insist it's the best sitcom ever made. I cannot think of a single show that surpasses Fawlty Towers in just writing and acting, and still blows my mind of how awesome it is. And
What's frustrating about it is the fact that there's only like 12 episodes.
I think that's
it.
I think it's dual a frustration, but also a strong point to me.
It is. I mean,
never entered into that
to
one season where like, oh, this season, can we just fast forward past this?
Yeah, because so many shows have done that. Dexter, but yeah, I won't point out any shows that really ended so badly that they almost ruined the flavor of the show for me, Dexter. But
Seinfeld, I would say.
I was never diehard on Seinfeld. Seinfeld was something I could come and visit, laugh at, and be done with. Yeah, I wasn't a religious follower of it.
The ending just disappointed me so much. You could have done a lot with that ending. And
I don't know. That was one of those shows. The way it's set up, I don't know how you could have ended that and truly satisfied your audience.
I don't think you could have. No, absolutely not.
No.
But at the same time, I don't think I've ever seen such a organized everybody saying meh before.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say, oh man, that ending was fantastic. No.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees. Meh.
The final episode of something is always, there's always a little disflavor. Yes. First off, because it's over.
Yes.
And you don't want it to be over. But you can never satisfy everyone.
Very true, yes.
I remember, I'm an old man, so I remember, when MASH ended, when the final episode of MASH aired, and people were like, why did Hawkeye go crazy? Why did... And I was like, are you kidding? They set it up for 11 years. He had no choice but to go crazy.
Right.
But you can't satisfy everybody. Mm-hmm. All you can do is do the best product you know to do and hope they like it.
Right.
Unless you really blow it out your ass like that. So.
Well, and it might just be my personal opinion, but honestly, even as bad as it is, I would much rather have a bad ending to a series than no specific ending at all.
I'd rather have a bad ending than just we're just going to stop.
Yes, I hate that. Yes. Or even for me, it's more disappointing when it's like all of a sudden, oh yeah, the show has not been renewed, but we didn't tell any of the artists or cast.
That's the worst.
So they didn't
that's
know
the
about
worst
it,
is
so,
when is when you can't get a last episode.
Right.
People assume, oh, we're going to be back next season or whatever, and they're just not.
Yeah.
Another show that I loved when it was on was Alien Nation.
Okay.
And
yes.
Alien Nation ended on a cliffhanger, on a multiple cliffhangers.
Yes,
they set this big dramatic ending, and they were canceled. And I was like, oh my god.
That one, I remember watching that with my mother. We loved that one, and my sister hated it because she was so afraid. And we could practically do the theme song. We were that into it that we could do the singing and just the things that drop. Oh, fantastic show. And you're right. It just ended with, please give me something else.
Yeah, give me something. But, hopefully, I have no idea. Eventually at some point, Ponies will end.
Right.
I have no idea if the writers have even speculated.
Right.
What if we did? Or should we do? Or if they're even planning anything. It might just, you never know.
Yep.
It could just fizzle out. It could end with a bang. It could.
Yeah,
there's no telling.
That's my biggest hope is that whatever happens, give it an ending, please. And I know Mitch Larson has said that everybody working was convinced that the season 3 ender was the end of the show. They all thought that's how it's going to end.
So many fans thought that too.
Most of the fans thought that for different reasons, though.
Yeah,
I think they thought that because it's over, man. What? She's got wings now. What the heck?
You know what kills me, and I know I'm going to get shot for this. I know I am, but I'm just going to say it.
Go.
When she got wings, it's like it was like when Alderaan exploded for Ben Kenobi. Just everybody just wept, and I was kind of like, okay. I have to admit, I had my doubts about the idea.
Right.
I was like, okay. My biggest gripe was that the characters. I liked the fact that there was two unicorn, two Earth, two Pegasus.
Yeah.
And now there wasn't. That kind of bugged me, but I was like, well, let's see what we do. I'm just going to be open about the idea. Let's see what they do. But there were people out there who were like, this is the end of the world, and I refuse to ever watch this show again. They've betrayed me. And I was like, how, what? What?
Yeah.
I
have seen some tweets and I've heard some stories
but at the same time, so many of these people have now calmed down.
Yeah.
And it's just give it time. I can understand the furor. Right. I can understand change.
Well, and somebody pointed out to me that something a lot of people, in the older bracket age, and I'm going to say over 30, we forget that for a lot of these people, this is their first fandom. They've
that is
never
true.
been
That's
in another fandom, and they don't know how to respond when things change.
It's sometimes, a lot of the drama that boils up comes from the good old-fashioned internet.
Yeah.
Where you have to remember that the person on the other end of that screen could be anybody, could be any age, And this fandom goes, this is a show that was aimed at 6 to 8-year-olds.
Right.
And has now appealed to people. I've met fans in their 60s.
Yep.
So it could be anybody. And like you said, it's an excellent point, is that for a lot of people, this is their very first fandom.
Right.
So they're kind of, breaking in their eye teeth on it.
Right. So. I compare it to, I don't want to diss anybody's first relationship, and I'm sorry if this sounds like I am, but when you have your first relationship and for whatever reason it ends, 100% of the relationships...
It will.
Sorry. Chances are, I'm sorry, but whatever, regardless of how long you were dating or whatever, 100% of the relationships you've been in have ended poorly. And it's not until you get other relationships that percent starts to diminish. And you get to my age and, it still hurts and it's still bad, but, that's a small percentage of the relationships I've had, so.
Well, I think also, they got to see, it came to season 4, and they're like, okay, you've betrayed me. Let me watch and see how you go further with this betrayal. And they realized that the writers still were doing their job. Yep. They were still invested in the characters. They did not remove her from, from the main 6.
Right.
They didn't really put her above her. I never really got that feeling. Every once in a while they'll say something about, your princess duties or whatever. But Twilight, for the most part, to me, was still Twilight.
I would agree. Yeah.
And I was like, I was pleased with it. And one of the things that that Katie pointed out to me, one of the reasons why she actually was intrigued by the idea of Twilight becoming a princess, is that Twilight didn't just magically one day, be born into it, marry into it, anything else like that. She kind of earned it.
Yeah, that's true.
And while it was kind of a surprise, I mean, I will say this: I would have liked to have seen a little bit more build up.
I have heard Mitch Larson say what his original script was, and what you see is such a change from.
See, that's the thing, is there's always a lot of background that people don't know about that has to be changed for story
Mitch
purposes.
Had actually written an entire thing of Twilight literally opens Pandora's box, and the entire.
I've heard that. Okay, yeah.
And so the entire resolution would have been being able to do something that even Celestia couldn't, and that is how she earned the wings.
Right. But I think, if you view it the way they watched it, they basically set up that all this time they've been kind of monitoring
Yes.
her abilities and everything else like that, and so they felt that she had earned this position.
Right.
And for young viewers, that's a pretty big deal.
That's very true.
In comparison to a Disney princess that marries into it or finds a glass slipper or whatever.
Right.
Here's somebody that has earned it.
That's very true.
And that's, for Katie viewing it as a mother, was like, this is pretty impressive. That my daughter.
Fully admit, as a teacher, Celestia's song really got me.
Yeah.
I think I heard that at the time that a few of my students were going to graduate and go off to college and live their lives forever without me, and I'm like, you go.
Right.
You go grow up now, and
yeah.
I'll sing Celestia's song over here and cry.
But I think a lot of the fans have come to the idea, come to embrace the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be when it first started, right after that season ender.
Right.
When people would come up to me and they would ask, would you draw Twilight for me?
Mm-hmm.
And I always had to ask, wings or no wings? Because, you don't want to upset anybody. You want to give them what they think is right. And now I'm not as much in the habit. I pretty much basically draw Twilight with the wings by habit now.
Right.
Every once in a while, I ask somebody, just to be sure, do you want wings or no wings? Wings. Wings.
Nice.
So they've come to embrace her as she is. And I'm always grateful when they ask for me to draw her with the wings, because then I don't have to draw her cutie mark. So her cutie mark is very convoluted.
Right.
And it can be difficult to draw depending upon how big I've drawn her. So
right.
The wing was kind of a nice blessing for me in the fact that it hides it. So
I get her cutie mark has 42 points, and that's life, universe, and everything. Okay.
And then everything,
Love that idea, but doesn't make it easier to draw for people. So yeah.
Right. I think I think a lot of times it's just if you don't like the story, that's okay, but
sure. Yeah,
you don't have to condemn anybody else for not liking it.
Yes. It's fine to not like something, and it's fine to walk away and never enjoy it again. Sure, go for it. It's your own choice.
But it's also fine to say, I didn't like that, but let's see. Okay, I've come to deal with it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So the fandom has a lot of different aspects, and it's been a great time to watch all of them open up and explore. So.
Yep, very true. Well, a question that I ask in each of my interviews.
Okay.
And you can use, and I'm giving you full permission here to use the comics if you'd like. In all of My Little Pony, what would you say is the one line or one scene that speaks out to you the most?
Wow. Oh gosh.
That's number 103 for those who are keeping count. And just for the record, nobody has been able to answer without that reaction there. Every single person.
I don't. I think that is a big question, because and that's one of the great things about the show is that it keeps topping itself.
Oh yeah.
They keep doing little gags or little moments or whatever that build up. I will say that when I first started watching the show, I was told, have you started watching the new My Little Pony? I'm like, My Little Pony, that's for girls. I'm not watching that. And I was like, why would I want to watch? I remember My Little Pony from 1982.
As do I. Yep.
And I was like, I'm not going to watch that. But my wife started watching it. She's like, okay, I'll give it a try. And she watched the first one. She was like, okay, that was kind of cute. I'll watch another one. And the second one she watched had a Benny Hill gag. And she was like, okay, that's kind of smart. Let's watch another one. And the third one that she watched was the Dog and Pony Show, the Diamond Dogs.
Oh, right.
And the entire episode is a veiled David Bowie reference.
Yep.
And she's a big David Bowie fan. She's like, this is brilliant. That's it. I'm hooked. And for me, the concept, when Pinky mentioned the headless horse, just the gag on that, the play on words of the headless horseman, the headless, of course, would be the headless horse.
Right.
For them.
Yes.
And the concept of that, I just laughed. I thought that was hysterical. So that was one of the first things that started to hook me.
Right.
But I don't know of a single moment that sums things up for me.
I thought that works. Headless horse, that's fine. Yeah,
that was one of the things that hooked me.
Sure.
That showed me the kind of humor that the show was venturing into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that little throwaway gag. I was like, oh, that's funny. And there's been a lot of lines, a lot of references that a lot of the younger audience, it's going to fly right over their head. They might think it's funny, or okay, that's quirky. They might not get what it's referencing,
right.
But they don't necessarily have to for it to work in the story. It's just a throwaway moment. You know, they've referenced Train Spotting, for the love of God. You know,
yes, very true.
You know, and when they do things like that, I think that those moments are brilliant. I think in the comics, one of the things that was a big deal for me was when we did the Reflections storyline to show that Celestia was just, she's not a
demigod,
can do no wrong,
right,
type of character. So I don't know, it changes for me. There's moments come and moments go, but I think that's actually a good thing. That there's not one essential moment that things keep topping themselves.
I would agree.
So,
absolutely, yeah. And I do have to mention real fast, the Reflections was absolutely, you added more depth to Celestia than I had seen, despite crying at her song at the end of the finale. Her character didn't have a lot of depth to me, but yeah, reading that was strong. That was really strong.
Thank you.
And,
that was,
and I hate admitting this, but the ending did shock me. He did what? And it's rare that happens in a book, especially a comic, for me.
Yeah. That was a wild ride for us. The story, that was the book that Hasbro changed.
Okay.
Hasbro did so many changes that we ended up having to change the story. Katie ended up having to change the story that she was originally going to do to what it became. Because of all the changes that they made. We're like, you can't do this, you can't do this. And I was like, why? Okay. It's too late. Too late to do this now. Now we have to do this, etc.
Right.
And Reflections is one of those books the fans either love it or hate it. I don't know if I've ever met somebody who's on the middle of the fence. They either love it or hate it.
Like a mirror reflection. Oh my God!
But that in itself is kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of that Andy Kaufman moment where you just go for a reaction. It doesn't matter if it's a good reaction or a bad reaction. You get a reaction. But the fact that people react to it strongly means that they still care about the product.
Yes, that's true.
So, for those who didn't like it, I'm sorry. For those who love it, that's great.
It did remind me of something I definitely want to point out. As far as I can tell, you're the only one to do this. Anybody else who shows unicorn magic, it is always from the point of the horn. And yours does that often too, but every once in a while, the unicorn magic comes out from the front like a rapier.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anyone else do that.
Because I don't think, if that's where the magic's going to come from, I don't know if it necessarily would have to come from the point. It's just kind of a focal piece.
Well, I mean, just comparing it to a sword, you can stab with a sword or you can slash with a sword.
Yeah.
They're useful in different situations. So.
It was probably a matter of drawing what fit the panel best, But yeah, I don't see where it would have to be anything too specific. I don't know. Maybe
as soon as bad.
Maybe you get slightly weaker magic off the side and slightly stronger magic off the tips. It's funneled. I don't know.
For me, my headcanon is that it's slightly weaker but larger area from the front.
Right.
That's just okay. And I do like how Spike looked up and said, "You can't do that. It's a kid's comic."
That was an odd moment. It was great for me because I actually try to avoid Pinky breaking the fourth wall in the comic book because it's expected,
Right?
and because it's done so much in the show. So I'm like, if you'll notice, when I'm drawing, the one character who typically breaks the fourth wall is Spike.
Yep.
I've
Spike
had Spike,
is the one holding the barriers between the two comic panels.
He'll be holding the panels or things like that. It's typically Spike,
right,
just to be a little bit different, a little bit unexpected, because everyone expects Pinky to do it, and when she does it, it's not that big a deal or whatever. It's come to be the norm, but Spike is a little bit unusual, so that's why I do that.
And also, Spike is the one who, during the fair, was trying to get people to spend bits at his stall, which is both you and Katie, so I can see how that feels. But hopefully you don't have to resort to tears as much as he did.
It was an emotional storyline. It really was.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry, I know that at least several of my friends, the Shining Arbor Cadence meeting is their favorite arc.
That was...
How many 80s movies did you reference?
Well, for me, that was easy to do because, I mean, I graduated high school in the 80s.
Right.
That was my era. And honest to God, the reference that I used was my yearbook. I got out, if you have the cover, there's a billion different covers,
right?
Whatever, that's IDW. But
I got a collection. I got one. I'm happy. It's okay.
The cover that I did for, I think it was the second part, is an open yearbook, so that you see Shining Armor and Cadence's senior high pictures. And that's my yearbook. I put my yearbook out in front of me, and I got my graduation tassel, and I put it there, and I drew from that. And all the wild hairstyles that all the ponies have on the other page, on the juniors page, I took those hairstyles from my yearbook. Right down to, I think it's the character of Thunderlane.
Okay, right.
Has the flock of seagulls hairdo, and there was a guy in my school who did that hair. So I was like, somebody's got to have the flock of seagulls hair,
Oh yeah, that's necessary.
But yeah, 80s references in there. And at one point in when Shining Armor and the guys are playing their version of D&D,
right?
Ogres and Oubliettes. If you look on the wall, there are posters for a couple of 80s films: Star Trek II, Highlander, and Blade Runner. And we had it was Star Trot 2, Highlander, and Bridal Runner, I think was the last one. And in his room, you see there's a poster for the new Full Titans, instead of the new Teen Titans, because the Teen Titans was the book in the 80s. Right. There's a Wild Stallions poster from Bill and Ted,
of course,
and nobody got that.
What?
That was a gag. I was shocked. I was shocked that nobody ever commented on the Wild Stallions poster. That to me seemed to be.
It sounds like me just covering my own butt here, but no, I noticed it and I laughed.
But yeah, there was a number of different references. I can't remember them all.
Well, I like how in Shining's room it's movies that are mostly referenced, but if you get to Cadence's, it's music, because we had Prince.
Yeah, she's holding the album for Prance and the Revolution, Magenta Rain, and Stallions Without Hats.
Yes.
And Bruce Springsteen.
Yep.
And there's it might have been covered up by a word balloon, but there was a poster on her wall for Dan Stapleberg.
I didn't see that one, so I think it is.
Instead of Dan Fogelberg.
Right.
There was a poster in Shining Armor's room that did get covered up by a word balloon, because I remember my editor was very upset at the fact that they had no place else to put the balloon. He said, I can't believe we have to cover up this gag. But it was a poster of the A-Team.
Oh!
And it was the Hay Team.
Ha!
So that's one of those little gags that nobody actually got to see because of the word balloon.
That's a shame.
There's one in Reflections where Celestia and Luna are talking, and they're walking through the halls of the castle. And I don't know if it got snuck in or if it got hidden under a word balloon. I think it got hidden. But there's a portrait of Celestia and Luna on the wall behind him. And Celestia's all smiling, and Luna's got one face. She's making a Calvin and Hobbes type of face. She's sticking her tongue out,
right,
and she's making a goofy face, And I think that got covered up. But every once in a while, something gets hidden by a word balloon.
That's a shame, but I'm sure that has to happen. Now, okay. Yeah. Now, just thinking out loud, if they really wanted to make the Kindle or iPod or whatever version, if they really wanted to add a special feature, they could do a word balloonless version where all of those gags are uncovered.
That'd be neat. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. It would be cool to see, especially nowadays. Once upon a time, the word balloons were done directly on the art.
Right.
But nowadays they're not. They're all done in. Typically, they're done in Illustrator.
Right.
So you could potentially release it digitally where you can turn the balloons off and see all the art. That'd actually be really cool.
I mean, there are a lot of times where the balloon, it adds specifically to the scene and it's designed to work in it. But often, like we said, it's just thrown in there at the last point and we've got to find out where it won't cover the most stuff.
Right.
I think that's something that could be done, and that would give me reason to download the digital ones.
Yeah. That actually would be pretty interesting to see. One of the things they did when we first did the book, one of the things that they released that I was so tickled and extremely flattered is they did a big oversized Treasury edition in black and white.
Oh, okay.
And like the old 70s Treasuries that used to get the big, oversized comic books. They released that.
Right.
And it's it's not the first 4 issues. I think it's the first 2 issues.
Okay.
But all black and white.
Oh, wow.
And they did it because they were so pleased with my ink work. Mm-hmm. They were like, this is really neat to see. Let's see it bigger.
Right.
So that's something, if you look out there, it's available. You'll find it in comic shops or on eBay or whatever.
Right.
But that was something that was very cool to see.
Oh,
I never expected to see anything like that.
Oh, well, everybody, today we've been speaking with Andy Price. Thank you so much for coming by.
You are very welcome. Very welcome.
Yes. Be sure to get the comics, and I can tell you as somebody who kind of swore off comics for quite a bit there, it's worth getting again.
Yes, thank you. And besides, the more you buy the comics, the longer I have a job. So
Always a good thing. Yes, absolutely. Be sure to swarm him at conventions and request the exact same thing on those.
Hang on right there. On that note, I just realized that we teased at something at the beginning of the episode. And we
that's right. That's right. We did, yes. That would be incredibly cruel of us to not follow up on this.
Project that we're just about to, or we've started work on, and they just announced, the word has just gotten out, is that there's a 6-issue miniseries coming out this spring, this April, for the April 5th Wednesday event. Every once in a while, the comic companies get to do a big event for when April has 5 Wednesdays.
Okay.
And this year's event, they're doing a 6-issue MLP miniseries. My Little Pony, Fiendship is Magic.
Ooh.
Each issue is dedicated to one particular villain / monster / adversary.
I would guess if they're in a group, then they're in the same issue. But yeah, okay.
But they're exploring backstories and some origins for characters like Nightmare Moon, King Sombra, and we will be returning. This will be the very first appearance she's had since issue 4, but Katie and I are bringing back Chrysalis.
Yes.
So, we were very excited about it. We'd been talking for a little while that we wanted to do Chrysalis again, and then we heard wind of this, and I got a hold of my editor, and I was like, "You give Chrysalis to anybody else, and you'll end up dead." You know, I'll sell your kneecaps to the local, to the local college. So he was like, "No problem, you guys got Chrysalis," because we kind of consider her ours,
And and I've mentioned to you, and I've tweeted it to you, but one of the Japan PonyCon cosplay artists heavily used your idea of Chrysalis to create from scratch her own Chrysalis cosplay, and I think it just looks fantastic and scary as heck.
Yes, that was some great pictures.
But yay, she's coming back! Woohoo!
Yes, she is coming back.
Excellent.
So we have plans for her. So
good. No spoilers, but excellent.
Nope, no spoilers. I don't give out spoilers.
I despise them and wouldn't ever request them. I would bleep them out if you said anything right now. Totally honest.
Wonderful.
I'm gonna put a bleep in here just to mess with people, and then say I know something you don't know.
But yeah, different creative team on each book. Okay. Katie and I are doing the Chrysalis issue, and also we're in the middle of our arc. Issue 27 comes out, I think, next week.
Okay.
If that is correct. That is the start of a new storyline called The Root of the Problem. That takes place. We will be meeting a new race.
Okay.
Who lives within the Everfree forest.
That title makes sense then.
And when you think about it, it's a race that logically we probably should have met before now.
Okay. Ents. We're going to have a massive issue of Ents.
I will say, because everybody jumps to a mythical character, it is a natural being.
Ooh, okay. Interesting.
Nothing mythological.
Okay.
But when you think about the setup that the show has given us before, I'm surprised we haven't had more of this type of character before.
Interesting. Okay, I won't guess.
That was my first thought when I read the stories. I'm surprised we didn't think about this before. So
good. I won't do guesses because I hate it when I accidentally guess and someone's like, "How did you know? Dang it, man!" But no, everybody be looking forward to that. Ooh, should be great.
Yep.
And actually, by the time this is released, it may already have been out. So yes, make sure you go pick it up. Sorry.
Yeah, it'll already be out by the time this is out. Issue 27 will be the first part, and issue 28 is the second part. I just wrapped up issue 28 a couple days ago, and we sent it off to the printer. So.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you so much for coming by, everybody.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for having me.
Follow him on Twitter, DeviantArts, other social media.
My Twitter is Andy Price Art. That is also what I go by on DeviantArt.
Right.
I also have my Big Cartel store where you can buy prints and original pages. It is sorely in need of updating. We're about to update it because we've got a lot of new prints that haven't been put up there. You can see me at conventions. I'll be at PonyCon in Brooklyn coming up February 14th.
Oh, that's right.
I will be at C2E2 in Chicago. I will be at MegaCon in Orlando. Nice. And on and on and on and on. So come see me. Give me all your money. And just give me all your money. So
force him to do a lot of Celestia pictures that just say she's better than Luna. Just to see him
well,
twitch.
I don't know
just
about
to
that.
See him twitch.
Just to see him twitch. Although I am such a fan of Nicole Oliver. So
yes, that's true.
I don't know.
Everyone, this has been Osaka Jack with Into the Spotlight on Everfree Network. Catch you next time.
Thank you.